Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I have a review of the 12 tube watercolor set by Naviska Palitra, which is also known as White Nights or Yarka. So if you are an artist in the United States, you've probably heard of both brands, but the brand you probably heard of first was the Yarka watercolors. Jack Richardson is a company in the United States that imports different products from different companies, and they are the distributor of the Naviska Palitra watercolors for the United States, and then in Europe you will see them branded as White Nights. And over the past few years, the White Nights watercolors have made inroads into the United States through Amazon and other independent sellers. The person that reached out to me and asked if I wanted to review this set was Pro Art Supplies from Etsy, and I think they are one of the American distributors of the White Nights line. Certainly the White Nights line is a lot less expensive than the Yarka line. If you were to compare the full pan prices on that Etsy shop, I think they're around $3.50, $4 for a full pan, which is like twice as big as these little half pans here that I squeeze the tubes into. I can show you here. Versus, you know, between $7 and $10 per full pan if you buy them at one of the American art suppliers such as Blick or Jerry's. So they are the same exact paints though, so keep that in mind if you are curious about these paints. I put these in little half pans, and there's the kind of the smaller half pans that are similar to the Winsor & Newton ones because they'll fit into this size palette, and I like to keep the same brands together if I have like a full set. Please excuse any noises you hear during this review because we're all learning at home still here in the state of Maine, and I think my daughter is doing choral class online upstairs, and everybody's home running water, so the water pumps and furnace and all that stuff is going to go off. I mean, the water pump's going right now, so I'm just going to forge ahead because people say it doesn't bother them. I don't know why I keep mentioning it. I should probably just not. Now that we are several minutes into this review, this is what the typical Yarka and White Night palettes look like now. They're nice and roomy. I think they come in sets as large as 36. Typically you'll see them for sets of 12, 24, and 36 online. And they do have a variety of different arrangements. So I just wanted to show you that because I do think the full pan paints are a better, they seem to handle better to me going from these 12 colors. I did find that these 12 colors matched the full pan colors because I do have, I think, all of those colors, or almost all of those colors in pan sets. So this is the White Night set. And let's see, 8 of the colors here from the 12 tube sets that can be found in the set of 24 White Night set, the White Night set of 24, and then the others I think are in the sequel set from Yarka. So you know, if you're looking into this set of tube paints, I would look at the colors and see if you're just duplicating what you already have. I will say I think their pans seem to be a little bit more robust than the tubes. Now the tubes, as you can see here, here's one that hasn't really been used much. Let me show you. The pans appear to be liquid poured, so it would stand to reason that it's the exact same paint that's in the tubes. I mean, the colors match really well between the swatched out pan and the swatched out tube. I found handling wise though, I really preferred using the dried down pans versus the dried down paints in tubes, but it's really personal preference. If you want to be able to put these in like a larger palette or your own custom palette, then obviously that's going to work. Now let's look at the color selection that are in this 12 color set, and it's going to come packaged like this. And actually you've got pigment information, you've got light fastness information, and you have got like transparency information. Most of these are pretty light fast colors. The only exception would be what they call green, which is PG8, which is not often used. It's kind of like a hooker's green color, and I think M. Graham might even use it as one of their hooker's greens. Some other company, I think M. Graham replaced it, but if they did use it, I think it's something different now. But it is a nice green. However, if you use it thinly, it can fade. It's kind of not a super reliable color, and you can get much better versions that are mixes or mix your own that'll be a little bit nicer. These are, I think these are 10 milliliter tubes. Yep, 10 milliliter tubes, so a decent sized tube. On one side of the tube, they have Russian writing, and on the other side, there's English writing, and then they have the pigment information, which is really nice. That's what I would expect in any artist grade paint. I would expect to have pigment information. And because the writing is so small on the tubes, I did write it down on my swatch chart here. So you've got Carmine, which is PR19, a nice, bright, cool red. You've got Cad Red Light, which is PR108, a true cadmium red that leans more towards orange. It also contains the color Golden Deep, PO62, which actually, when mixed with Emerald, which is PG7, a phthalo green, makes a lovely sap green, and I would use that over using the PG8 there. You've got a Cad Yellow Medium, which is a true cadmium, PY35. You've got a PY3 Lemon. Now, in one of the sets, I think it might be the original 24 set of White Knights, they have a cadmium yellow, cadmium lemon, which is really nice. It's a really beautiful color. It's a little more opaque, so if you don't want the opacity, the PY3 Lemon will be strong but not opaque, and you might prefer that. PG8, the only color I see here that would be a light fast problem. PG7, which is a fairly, it's a very strong, very fairly light fast phthalo color. PB35 for cerulean. I'm not a big fan of this color. It was very weak and almost syrupy or slimy in mixes. I didn't find that to be. I've had other cerulean blues that I've used, and this almost acts like it's got fillers in it, because other true cerulean blues that I've used have been much more robust. Although it does leave a beautiful texture when mixed with, used on its own or mixed with PB29 for skies, ultramarine. I like that ultramarine. I have no complaints there. I like the raw sienna, PY43, a fairly transparent raw sienna, more transparent than a yellow ochre. Has a little bit of texture to it. A little stronger than yellow ochre as well. It has sepia instead of any like more pure brown, which I don't care for. But I do notice that a lot of paint sets use sepia. I noticed that with the basic color of Schminke, their 12 color sets, they use sepia versus like a nice umber or burnt sienna or burnt umber. Any of the PBR7 browns that are nice and mixable and rich. So I'm not a big fan of sepia. I don't use it typically. I don't think I ever use it unless I'm reviewing a set that's got sepia and that's the only brown. It's just not my cup of tea. It might be yours. This is definitely, I feel like it does have a more traditional underfeel to it. It has a lamp black. Although Carmine, I would think you would, if you were going for a real traditional palette, you would do a alizarin crimson. But you know. And I don't know, I like to have a burnt umber or a burnt sienna. So this, I think the tubes of paint are fine. I like Yarka and White Knights watercolors. In fact, I've painted through a 24 set, like the original 24 set of Yarka that I got back in the late 90s, I think. I really like the paints. I didn't have any issues with fading that I know of, that I've noticed on any of the paintings that I used. I always found them to be a very affordable, good brand, especially if you're getting into artist grade watercolors, but the some of the more tried and true expensive brands are out of your budget. I find this to be a good option, but I will say that you do want to be careful with the White Knights and Yarka lines as a whole, because there are some fugitive colors. Let me show you here in the sequel set. I think I saw a few questionable colors here, like their actually, let me show you both of them. I'll grab both swatches here. There's just a few things that I find a little strange, like their violet, rather than using a dioxazine violet, which is PV23, they use a PV3, so that's kind of strange. So almost for the same exact color, they're choosing something that's going to fade. This beautiful red-based blue, I thought, well, maybe that's like a phthalo sapphire or something, but it was called PB1. I never heard of that color before, and I did some research on it, and it's Victoria Blue, which is a very fugitive color. It's gorgeous and transparent. It almost looks like that ultramarine in a marker, you know, the color if you were to use alcohol markers, but it's very fugitive. The Prussian Blue, and one of the swatches I have in my binder, it was actually a swatch that came from Neviska Palitra itself, like one of their hand swatch charts. The Prussian Blue is almost gone, which I was really surprised, because I always thought that one recharged in dark, and in my binder it should not be getting hardly any light, but it was quite faded. So you do want to be careful about some of the colors that they use, and I find that to be true with a lot of the Asian brands, whether you want to consider a Russian watercolor a European brand or an Asian brand. It does have a lot of similarities with some of the pigments that are used in some of the Korean and Chinese brands of watercolor. That said, they have some gorgeous colors, and they're definitely worth a look. And they're definitely, if you're getting the White Knights line and you're buying them for like $4 a pan or less, I think Jackson's even has them for like $2.50, and they ship worldwide. I think they're a wonderful option. I would not pay, you know, I would not pay over $5 a full pan for these, let alone, you know, $7, $8, $9, $10 on the American sites for the Yarka brand. But I think it's because there's, I don't know. I think there's some serious markup going in there, probably to make them a little online with more of the other paints, artist quality paints that are sold in America. So if you're buying it for a good price, they're definitely worth a look. I still prefer the pans to the tubes. The tubes to me dried down, just felt a little, they felt a little weak. They almost felt like some of the colors almost felt a little gummy, like the cerulean and the raw sienna almost felt a little gelatinous to me, kind of like a Gansai Tanbei paint. You know how they have that texture to them? That's what that reminded me of. But all in all, I think the paints are decent. I would still go for the full pans because I think that's a good value. If you get the White Knight line, the Yarka line does tend to be more expensive these days for some reason. But this 12 set, if you like the colors, if you know you're going to use them, go for it. They have a 24 set that seems to have a greater variety of colors. Well, obviously it would have double the colors, it would have a greater variety, but it would probably be a little more useful, since I find like I probably wouldn't use that color, 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 you know, and all these other colors I have in other iterations from this brand or from other brands. So hey, if you're looking to try this out, I think this set goes for around $35 for 10 colors. $3.50 a color is not bad for an artist grade pigment, but for that same price you can get the full pans on Etsy at Pro Art Supplies. I think I would do that and choose the colors that you know are light fast, that you like. That's just my recommendation. I'm going to show you some artwork that I did with this set and with other of the Yarka sets recently, just over the last couple of weeks, just to prepare for this review. And I will have a tutorial. If I don't already have a tutorial up for this, it will be up shortly. So I just did this little landscape with the colors from this set. I didn't use them all because I wanted to see how they mixed with a limited palette. And they were all right. That cerulean, it does leave a pretty texture with the ultramarine blue, but I just find that it's a bit weak. And I know I've used prettier cerulean blues before with that pigment makeup, so it just feels like there's some filler in that one. Maybe because it's a more expensive pigment. I don't know. But I didn't notice that issue with the pan cerulean. And it could just be, maybe I didn't let these dry as much as I usually do, but I would think they would be more robust even if they were still a little moist. So there is that. I did this this plum the other day. I did use some of the colors from the sequel set on that. You know, they behave like a traditional watercolor, more so than a Asian watercolor, even though I did say some of the pigments seemed more like what you would find in Asian watercolors. I find the quality and the feel of them, it definitely feels more like a Western, a traditional watercolor, like a Winsor & Newton or Sennelier or Schminke. It's got more of that feel to it. Let's see, and I did do a figure. This is with the Yarka watercolors, very transparent. I will say these paints are nice and transparent. The Yarka line, I think they're great paints, and I think they're certainly a good bang for your buck. Personally, I'd say go for the whole pans. I think I think they're easier to work with, and give you a little bit more color payout, if that makes sense. Even though the pans seem to be liquid poured, so maybe it's the same exact paint, just poured out and dried down in layers, I don't know. But I did use the Yarka for this. I did use some watercolor crayons to highlight the skin and give it a little bit more of a creaminess to it. But yeah, they're really pleasurable to work with. As far as this set of 12 colors, I think I would go with one of their pan sets if you're going to get a set, and or get some open stock. I think the set of 12 colors, while there are some very useful colors, when there's only 12, to have a couple of colors that really are not, as you had 4 colors that really aren't that useful, or not the best options they could have put in there, I think is a little bit of a bummer. And also they put Golden Deep. When you have a warm red and you have a warm yellow, you can easily make that color. I don't know why they would throw that one in. It just seems like there are 5 opportunities for better colors in this set. I would go with like a burnt sienna or a burnt umber. I would go for a sap green. I would go for a phthalo blue, or and maybe even a Payne's gray if you like to. A lot of people love Payne's gray, so I mean that would make sense to put that in versus instead of a sepia. That's just my opinion, and that's what reviews are. Reviews are opinions. You should always check out other people's reviews, several people's reviews before you invest in a paint set in case your style is more like theirs. This is just an opinion. I think the paints themselves are really a great value, good bang for your buck. They are artist quality and they perform quite well, with a caveat that you just want to keep your eyes out on some of the pigments they use. They may be unknown to you as a Western painter, so do your research. I go to Handprint and research there. There's also another color pigment index that I check out, but yeah, always check out a few people's reviews before committing to spending money on art supplies, especially if you're getting quality art supplies that tend to be a little pricier. Although these artist level paints, these artist quality paints do fall more into like the upper student level paints, such as like your Cotman, your Winsor Newton Cotman, or your Van Gogh paints, but they are better quality. So I say, I like the paints. I like the brands of paints. I'm not so sold on this 12 color set, but all in all, the Yarka and White Knights line of paints I am a fan of. So there you have it. I hope this was helpful. I know I put out a lot of watercolor reviews, so it could be confusing. But I do have another review on the 24 set pan set of White Knights if you want to check that out. I'll link that down below so you can find it. And also link down the student grade. They make a student grade set called Sonnet. So that's an option too. They're a great student grade paint. There are a few issues with light fastness as with any student grade paint, but the artist grade paint is pretty affordable. So, you know, I mean, you might even be probably better off just saving up a little bit and going for the artist grade paint because they are so affordable. Same thing with Paul Rubens. Like, they released a student grade paint, but their artist grade paint's pretty affordable, that I would just stay with the artist grade paint. I would go for that because it's still cheaper than artist grade paint of a similar quality and about the same price as student grade paint of another quality. So yeah, the tubes, I think they're decent. I prefer their pans. I feel like their lay down, the pans are a little bit smoother too, but like these swatches up there are some of their pan colors, and these are the tubes down below. But all in all, it's a good paint. You really can't complain. Thanks so much for watching. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this review, and until next time, happy crafting.